What have we learned from this update? First in-person pioneer meeting in 3 years. We need these kingdom halls for our in-person meetings. In-person circuit assemblies. Jürgen Pedersen, like lightning. Never should we worry that our God will be late attending in-person meetings. We couldn't meet together in person again. So resuming in-person congregation meetings, in-person Christian meetings to attend meetings in person. Back to the Kingdom Hall. Nothing like being together with our brothers and sisters in person. Get back to the hall, being back in person at the Kingdom Hall.
Meetings at the Kingdom Hall, in-person meetings. I am back to the Kingdom Hall.
When I heard we're going back to in-person, I was so excited. And so to come to the Kingdom Hall, there's no question by being at the Kingdom Hall.
Positive reports about in-person meetings. The decision to return to in-person meetings since resuming in-person congregation meetings, but after resuming in-person meetings at the Kingdom Hall, may prevent them from attending meetings in person regularly at the Kingdom Hall. They could be physically at the Kingdom Hall. We're getting ready for in-person circuit assemblies, and so now is an excellent time to evaluate our attitude about in-person meetings. Some cannot attend in person of the congregation at in-person meetings. Our brothers and sisters in Ukraine have faced especially challenging circumstances when it comes to holding in-person meetings. We're approved to resume in-person meetings, joy and benefits of in-person meetings. Return to in-person meetings, meetings at the Kingdom Hall refresh. This is especially the case after spending hours in basements.
That's enough.
Attending in-person meetings feels like being aboard a huge cruise ship. But when I am in the Kingdom Hall, ever having attended a meeting at the Kingdom Hall, but I did not expect that the atmosphere in the Kingdom Hall would be so overwhelming. We're encouraged by the determination of our brothers and sisters in Ukraine to attend in-person meetings.
Well, that was a load of shit.
Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally and today we are looking at the rest of the governing body update. We looked at the section about Norway and some of the legal difficulties that Watchtower is having there and their response to it. And today we are going to look at some more of the difficulties they're having with getting Jehovah's Witnesses to attend in-person meetings once again and some of their building projects. Don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, and let's do this.
At the beginning of the pandemic, many activities were quickly suspended. But now, as we're coming out of the pandemic, many activities are quickly resuming. And this is no surprise because Jehovah's celestial chariot moves swiftly like lightning. The Pure Worship book explains, Jehovah's chariot perfectly reflects the reasonable, adaptable God who is in control of it. As his very name suggests, he can become anything that is needed in order to accomplish his purpose. Never should we worry that our God will be late in responding to our needs or that his organization will fail to adapt to some new challenge arising in the volatile world around us. We do well to remember that Jehovah's organization is active, ever on the move. In the future, various governments will challenge our freedom of worship. They may pressure us to change our scriptural beliefs, but we're certainly not going to do that.
The scriptures are very clear. Before a judicial committee can be convened, there has to be a confession or 2 witnesses. So we will never change our scriptural position on that subject.
Duplicity of the Watchtower leaders never ceases to amaze me. 30 seconds earlier in his talk, when he's going over the thing on Norway, he pugnaciously says that we are never going to change our stance on shunning, despite ample evidence that's been presented to the governing body demonstrating the harmful effects it has on children and how it infringes on their freedom. But no, we're never going to change. The same thing happened a few years back whenever they were presented with evidence about the problematic nature of the two-witness rule, especially in cases where CSA is involved. And they say, we are never going to change. And then you just go 30 seconds forward in his talk, and he's talking about God's chariot, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is God's organization, both heavenly and earthly, and it's always on the move, and Jehovah's Witnesses got to keep up with the chariot, whatever that means. But they talk about it being adaptable, reasonable. You just got done saying that you're never going to change. You have this rigid mindset where, no, this is absolutely right. And then 30 seconds later, he's like, oh, but you know, the organization will adapt to any old thing that comes its way. It is absolutely shocking that they talk in this way.
We've certainly experienced the truth of these words during the pandemic. Thank you for the fine spirit you show as we all adapt to these changes. Earlier in the pandemic, we couldn't meet together in person, but as a result of faithfully following the chariot, we adapted and used video conferencing for our meetings and ministry. Thankfully, circumstances are different now. We rejoice to be able to meet in person again.
So now we get the real reason for this whole thing about adaptation. It's because he's saying, yep, we adapted because of the pandemic. We adapted like everyone else. Watchtower didn't do anything special. And now we need to adapt again, because the end of the year, this year, it really seems like the main points that Watchtower just continues to hit over and over are, why aren't you guys going to meetings in person? Why is everyone on Zoom still? Shame on you. And please send us more money. So yeah, let's break the rest of his talk down, because I do find it quite interesting.
Back in July, the governing body prepared an announcement that was read in all congregations about attending in-person meetings. Do you recall some of the key points from that announcement?
Nope.
Now, some of us got used to doing everything on Zoom. I know for me, only for Jehovah would I have done what we needed to do during the pandemic. As soon as we could, I was so happy to go back to the Kingdom Hall. There really is nothing like being together with our brothers and sisters in person. I appreciate that others can't, but I was happy to get back to the hall. Many feel the same way.
It's so funny to me that no longer do they refer to the Bible. It seems that they always are referring to old Watchtower publications like he did earlier. Remember this quote from this publication. And now, hey, remember that letter that went out. Let's just read that. I cut out most of what he said in the letter there. That was the one that was saying, hey, it's been such a great privilege and blessing, and Jehovah is clearly blessing our efforts to return to in-person meetings. And then basically telling people if they were young and healthy that they needed to get their butts back to the Kingdom Hall. But what I found amazing was this self-congratulatory nature that Tony Morris has here. You know, I, myself, only did that Zoom stuff because I had to, because of the pandemic. But boy, howdy, do I like being able to go to my local meetings. It's just the best. Nothing could ever keep me from going to my meetings. I would really like to know how many weekly meetings that he attends. Does he attend like all meetings, or does he get some kind of pass? I know in times previously, and even Ray Franz wrote about this in his book, but he said he was always out of town doing speaking engagements and things like that. So I don't think it's quite the same for a governing body member who's like, oh, finally I get to travel the world. I get to go all over the world, flying first class and, experiencing different cultures, something that ordinary people don't have an opportunity to do. And that's his weekly meeting. Well, I'm just trying to keep up my meeting attendance. But for him, it's a constant vacation. It's like the best case scenario. Would he feel the exact same way if he was going to the same Kingdom Hall that he had been going to for 20 years, talking to the same people in the same territory that he had been talking to for 20 years, constantly getting rejected by everyone, actually going house to house preaching, dealing with the same people, the same issues, the same personalities in the same congregation for decades? Would he have that exact same amount of enthusiasm? Like, oh man, I can't wait to get back to doing that. So I just think it's disingenuous when he's talking about how he is so privileged to be back, because his version of being back to meetings is going to be significantly different than an ordinary Jehovah's Witness.
Let's hear how some of our brothers and sisters feel about being back in person at the Kingdom Hall.
I was so sad when they announced that we would stop having meetings at the Kingdom Hall because of COVID. I felt trapped because I couldn't go to the Kingdom Hall anymore to be fed spiritually. For 2 years, the faithful slave made arrangements for us to listen to the meetings over the radio. Since I did not have a radio, I went to different brothers' homes to listen to the meetings. Then, the elders arranged to start having meetings on Zoom. I do not have a smartphone, so I had to go to the homes of those in the congregation. Sometimes, after arriving, I would find out that their internet data bundle was used up. This made the pandemic very difficult for me.
Now, normally I just cut these little interviews out that have the voiceover and the soft music, but I did find this one to be very telling about how they're using her as an example, and how Watchtower didn't come through and help her. They have an incredible amount of resources that they could have used to give this lady a radio, to get her a smartphone, and set her up with some sort of data plan for the next couple years. It would be well within their means to be able to set up something like that. And yet she's having to go and travel to her local Jehovah's Witness friends and try and use their data to do Zoom or use their radio. And it's like, what she says, well, the faithful slave set this thing up for us to be able to watch it on Zoom or do it on the radio, but they didn't really help her now, did they? And again, that would be like something even approaching charitable work, because it would at least be helping someone that doesn't otherwise have access to, the program. And still, it would only be within the JW bubble. But this would be an opportunity for them to do something charitable. And yet, again and again and again, they never do. They never do anything to help ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses unless it directly benefits them.
It's heartwarming to hear their expressions. We've received many positive reports about in-person meetings. For example, the Burundi branch recently wrote, "The decision to return to in-person meetings has been a great blessing to our brothers and sisters in Burundi. Although they did what they could to connect virtually, the reality was that many just did not have the circumstances to do so. Since resuming in-person congregation meetings, our attendance has increased tremendously throughout the country. For example, in one congregation, the attendance was 140 persons when the meetings were held virtually. But after resuming in-person meetings at the Kingdom Hall, the attendance is now 227.
Nice little trick there, Tony, but we're not going to have any of it. You started this off by saying, this is a report from an area that didn't have access to the necessary equipment in order to do Zoom meetings. And you said, so the attendance was down to 140. But now that we're back to in-person, it's 220. Yeah, baby. Look at the growth that we're experiencing. Look how happy people are to be back at the meeting. Why don't you now give a counter example A counterexample of somewhere like Norway, or the Netherlands, or Seattle, Washington. Give me one of those examples and tell me what the numbers look like, because from all reports and indications that I'm hearing, it sounds like meeting attendance is down by like 40%. And even though that's down, most of them are tuning in on Zoom. People are all the time sending screenshots of like a congregation of 120 people. There's 40 people at the meeting, and there's only 13 that even have their cameras on. I want to see the counter report, because you can't just take one random example that you admitted they didn't even have access to the equipment necessary, and then use that as a baseline to say, look at how happy everyone is in the organization to be attending the meeting. But by his own admission and what he's about to point out and what he's about to say, we know that simply is not the case.
However, it has been observed that some have developed a tendency to attend meetings on a video conference when, according to their circumstances, they could be physically at the Kingdom Hall. That's what the announcement said. It's something we can continue to reflect on. The chariot is moving. We're getting ready for in-person circuit assemblies and regional conventions. So now is an excellent time to evaluate our attitude about in-person meetings. Again, we appreciate that some cannot attend in person, but on the other hand, maybe some could. What will help each of us to honestly evaluate our personal circumstances?
If you are a Jehovah's Witness watching this, or if you've recently left the organization and are overcome at any point with feelings of guilt, I just want you to remember that it's okay. It is okay to say no to someone that is trying to coerce or pressure you into doing something that feels unnatural to you. This is the pattern that Jehovah's Witnesses establish from the very, 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 very early age. When a kid should be out, playing soccer or building forts with blankets with his friends, they are training children to go preaching, to go to the Kingdom Hall. Hey, it's a school night, but you're not going to be going to bed till 10:30 because you had to go to the Kingdom Hall, and it's so boring you fell asleep. A natural thing to do. You get poked by your parents and say, no, you need to keep paying attention, forcing you to do something that is wholly unnatural. Then you move into your teenage years and you start going through puberty and you start being attracted to other humans on this planet. And they tell you you are bad for doing that. That is gross. You need to reject that type of thinking and to never embrace that. Again, someone that is forcing you or coercing you to do something that is unnatural. And it's very important to remember, it is okay to tell someone no. It is your right to choose for yourself what you want to do, as long as that thing that you want to do isn't infringing on another person's right or another person's freedom or is harming someone in some way. That is completely within your power. No one is harmed by you not going to the meetings. And when he is sitting, hey, how can you evaluate your personal choice? That is a bunch of malarkey. He doesn't need to help you and talk about how to evaluate your personal choice, because all that he cares about is that your butt gets back to in-person meetings. And if how you deal with that is by pulling back, and you found that over the course of the last few years, going to the Kingdom Hall feels unnatural for you, that is okay, because it is your personal choice, and you don't have to listen to this egghead.
Yes, by being part of Jehovah's organization, we share in the strength and peace that only He can provide. May we all continue to adapt as Jehovah's chariot moves and enjoy His rich blessing. From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.
I'm going to have to hard disagree with you there, Tony, because it looks by the evidence that people don't find peace and don't find strength from participating in these theocratic activities. After having a few years to reflect, there are not as many people as you would have thought that are excited to get back to in-person meetings. But I am very happy and glad that you keep on pushing this narrative, because the stronger he pushes, the more people are going to have that gut feeling, that sort of reaction like, something's not right, and why do they keep telling me to do this thing that I know deep down inside isn't right? It's a good thing. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for another coverage of the governing body updates. I thought this one was really surprising. Don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you're still around, and I will see you next time.